Welcome to the show. It's deep with the twist. We're laughing through the scriptures where humor coexists. Cultural. Come on and take a seat. It's faithful and it's fun. Wherever it meets sweet. Dive into the stories. Hear the podcast call. It's Mormon stuff with a smile in the cultural hall.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, an Articles of News episode, but more specifically, it is a pop culture and all things internet. Well, most things internet. There's a couple internet stories we won't be talking about, but we are talking all things pop culturally. So what is that? That's Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. That'll be in here. We're going to talk about The Bachelor. That'll be in here as well. We'll talk about the Ruby Franke book and the Ruby Franke Hulu series. And then we're also going to talk about a woman that for some reason is in the news who finally is dating someone. It's the weirdest story I've found of the week. Joined by Molly the Ash Ashton. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, if people are watching on YouTube, they'll notice that Molly the Ash Ashton is trying to take over Taylor One Chain Westbrook. As you look at her, she's got the one gold chain on. That is a signature move for Taylor to always wear, and that's great. Oh, you got two. Never mind.
I got two.
It's
so
two. We're two
one was
chains.
hiding.
That's fine. That's fine. Molly loves the pop culture stuff, so I thought who better to discuss all of this with than her. What's new with you? You were just talking before we started recording. It's coming to spring break time, which for my money is the worst time to travel.
Yeah, it is true. For sure, it's the worst time to travel. We are just going on a very relaxing trip up to where I grew up in Oregon, so we will not be doing a whole lot.
Is it just like tradition stuff like, oh, we always play Monopoly until we can't stay awake anymore, and we always like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, we hike. I love hiking, and so we have our favorite hikes there. We always go on the same hikes, and we play card games, and we usually, build a fire in the fireplace and have hot chocolate and popcorn, and we call my son Corn Boy because he makes popcorn for everyone. I don't know. It's just what he does. Like, he does his thing and gives us all popcorn. I don't know.
Do you all go to the same? You always go to the same restaurants? There's something about that kind of vacation where you're like, I know exactly what this is going to be like, and I'm here for it.
Yep. Same restaurants. I mean, it's really hard to branch out because we've got our favorites, and it's been our family vacation for so long. So we'll be in Oregon in Lincoln City.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, this year, the only vacation that I'm officially going on is to the place where we went as kids growing up. It's in it's like Central California, in a place called Big Trees, Angels Camp. It's in Calaveras County, where they have the Frog Jumping Festival, which is grown men and women yelling at frogs to jump as far away as they can from the center of the circle, because that's how you win the big amounts of money that actually is offered for this thing. So it's grown people spraying frogs and going, jump!
That's awesome.
But I haven't been there. I haven't been there since the summer before I left on my mission. And all of my siblings, well, most of my siblings, I should say, most of my siblings and my parents are all going to go rent a couple cabins and be together for a week. We haven't done a vacation like this ever, and I think it will be the only time that we'll do a vacation like this.
A one and done. Well, that sounds cool though.
Yeah.
I heard you have booked out every weekend of the entire year, right?
Yeah, well, pretty much till November.
Until November.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome. Hey, wait.
Is it awesome? Or is it an inability to say no and a massive flaw of being a people pleaser and not being able to take care of myself? Is it that?
I was sort of thinking that when I heard that. I was like, ooh, that would be really overwhelming. But you probably don't have many gigs during the week, right?
Not as many, yeah.
You're really weekend heavy, but good for you for taking the one trip. Hopefully you do something else in November. Give yourself another little break.
Well, to your spring break thing, the thing that I love about the schedule that I have is that I can go like a Monday to Thursday somewhere that isn't during spring break. And when you go there, you actually go, oh, this isn't ridiculous with how many people there are trying to get wherever, here, there, whatever, right? We went to St. George about a month and a half ago before all of the baseball tournaments and softball tournaments and dance things and all these things. It was just like a regular middle of the week in St. George, Utah, and I was like, this is the best way and time to travel.
Yeah, that for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
You do have that benefit. Hey, I have to mention something really quick because
Uh-oh.
on the last articles of news you did with my sister Megan, the
Uh-huh.
Mitch,
Uh-huh.
she was talking about cereal. And I have to show you something because you and I have the same cereal that we love, which is Raisin Bran Crunch.
Yes.
Yes. So I found this Kroger Raisin Bran oat clusters.
Okay.
If you need something, because Raisin Bran Crunch is never on sale, and I'm a big sale shopper.
Okay.
And I found this the other day, and it was like $2, while
Uh-huh.
the Raisin Bran Crunch was like $6 or something, and it is fantastic.
Is
So
it the same?
it's totally the same. Yep,
Huh.
totally the same. And funny thing, growing up, it bugged me when my mom bought the generic brands. We always did. We didn't have much
Sure.
money, so she did, and I just thought it was terrible because we're eating the generic cornflakes and generic Rice Krispies. And now I've turned into my mother because if it's cheaper and it tastes as good, why not? Right?
Well,
But
if it tastes as good. I
yeah,
always found the raisins in generic raisin cereal product to not ever be as good as the more expensive stuff.
this one is really good. Like I would definitely buy it over the name brand. So just a heads up, if you're
All right.
ever having a hankering and you don't want to spend the money, there are
Okay.
options.
Yeah, I don't I yeah. Now I need to Kroger is a Smith's, right?
Yes.
Smith's.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. What you made me think of is I was thinking with your generic cereal, I was like, are finances okay? I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Do you remember, and we'll go quickly into the news because I promise a news heavy episode, but do you remember the generic boxes that were just black and white? It was like they didn't even bother, like
With
trying to brand it as anything. It was
yes,
like raisin cereal and
yes.
and it was black and white and it could be right next to the oat round cereal and they
Oh,
were all just black and white
oh, yeah.
boxes. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Definitely. Yeah. They couldn't even bother with any colored printing. Yeah.
Yeah, cheaper,
Yeah.
cheaper. We're going to go back to that. Mark my words. Within a year, we're all going to wish we could afford a box of cereal and just
You
be like, please, please, please.
bring the generics back.
Oh,
We
I
don't
don't I
want
don't need color on my boxes. I just need the box of cereal itself.
exactly.
Um, I need to give a shout out to Chris, to the Tiger with a U. I need to let him be praised and thanked. We talked in our last Temple Ticker episode that we needed to get a better microphone for the Pharaoh because whenever he talks sometimes it's like this, and it's really hard to understand.
Yeah.
Chris said, "You know what? I would love to support that." So I know we'll mention it on all the Temple Ticker episodes, but to the people that who emailed, and there were more than Chris that did that, but to the people that emailed, there might be other opportunities for sponsorship, that kind of stuff. But thank you. That will be resolved as we look forward to our Temple prediction episode coming up. Do you like to make general conference predictions?
No, I
No.
really don't. No.
You ever
I don't
think
know.
about it though? You're like, nah, I really wish they'd changed this by then.
I mean, for sure, sometimes, and especially right as we get into the couple weeks before, everyone's like, "Oh, are they going to allow coffee now?" And the word of wisdom, and I'm always like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever they say, they'll say, and I'll just be okay with it. Probably. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't think too much about it.
Allow me to I don't know if this is mansplaining necessarily, but I would think that as a woman you got to be pretty excited about the garment changes that are coming up.
Oh, yeah. In fact, funny story. So I know you've talked about this with other people already on articles of news, but I'm going to Peru to hike the Inca Trail, which one of your other co-hosts is there right now.
Yep.
Oh, the one who wears the gold chain, right?
Yeah. Old one chain Westbrook. Yep.
Yes. Anyhow, and I was like, I wonder if they have the garments down there. And I'm going to be in Lima, and there's a distribution center in Lima. But when I went back and looked at my travel arrangements, I'm only going to be in Lima on a Sunday and the following Sunday. So I have no
Hmm.
opportunity to try to find the garments down there. So that's unfortunate. But
Well,
yeah,
if you need to be hooked up with a dealer, you let me know. They
I
can meet
will.
you. They can meet you outside the chapel on a Sunday.
Hey,
Listen,
that's actually a really good idea. I should try.
you got the goods. Yeah, hang on. I just got to go take the sacrament, and I'll be right back.
Yeah. I mean,
Just
truly, I had three friends saying, you got to go get us them if you're going to be down there. I don't even know if they have them down there. It's just an assumption because it's South America and I don't know.
a warmer climate, but Arizona, where you live, also a warmer climate. I got to be thinking that they're rolling out here pretty quick.
I would hope so. I would hope so. But all of my friends and I were just like, what are we going to do when we see shoulders at church? And are the older generation going to freak out? I mean, it's going to
Yes.
be a good, I'd say a year or two of big adjustments for people, but I'm excited. I think
Yeah.
it's great.
Is it big though? Like I get the old guard looking at it and being like, so there's an interesting conversation to be had where for the longest time it was we're helping keep pure thoughts and we're all these different things, right? It's not misleading, but it's the way they protect it. And now we're like, hey, it's different. Is the older guard going to be like monitoring because they feel like, oh, that's not the way it should be? Is it they're going to be monitoring because they're like, I didn't get to do that, or is it, like an anger that's festered where it's like, well, how come I didn't get to? Because you got to think that there's going to be a little bit of all of it, but what is going to be the overwhelming thing of, well, it must be nice. Is that it? Must be nice.
I honestly think it's going to be more of the older generation just saying it's just not right. Like we've just never been able to show the shoulders, not necessarily because they have wanted to. I
Hmm.
think they just are. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a lot of opinions on that, unfortunately, but I do think as I've talked to some friends with mothers, my mom has passed away. I don't know how she would feel about it, but my friend is like, oh, my mother-in-law is going to die if she
Yeah.
sees people walking into church. But not because the mother-in-law wishes she could have. It was just more of but this is the standard. This is the rule. This is how it's always been.
Right.
And I find that interesting. And I don't know. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be great. I think it'll help people who've been struggling. And there's the two thoughts on it is, are they trying to do this to make it so more people will wear the garment because
Hmm.
it's less covering, and so the people who are struggling will wear it because they can wear different clothes, or is it more for the heat factor? I think it's a
Right.
combination.
Right.
Mm,
I
yeah,
I hope it is the biggest non-issue. I know I'm going to be incorrect, but I hope
yeah,
it's a non-issue at all. And I
yeah.
know in 6 months' time or in a year's time, it will be like the scandal. One, so and so said, even though you can do it, doesn't mean that you should. Like we start to make this hierarchy of, well, yeah, if you want to be, if you want to be telestial about your garments or some weird thing like that. If there's something that could just be good, we have a tendency, and I'm being generalizing about this, but we have the tendency to be able to be like, nope, you can't just have a nice thing. We've got to make it
Right.
stigmatized or shameful or something mean something more than it does, or not mean something that it does mean, or whatever the thing is.
Well, I
Um,
mean, the amount of comments really quick that I've seen online about people like, oh, I was never able to wear something. I was modest shamed because of this, and I could have worn this to prom and whatever. I don't know. I'm just think things just change and evolve, and it's an ever-changing church, and I think we just have to understand that.
yeah, but it's when and where people are focused on the wrong part of the thing that
Right.
they get tripped up, and then they have a huge issue with some of this stuff.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
let's take a break. Come back. We're doing pop culture, LDS news, Mormon news. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Uh-huh. Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah. It's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com. Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. That about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Hit it, Peter.
You can't lose articles of news.
And away we go. Now, there's so much in pop culture news that's why this episode is existing. For people who don't know, The Bachelor well, it's a TV show where one gentleman, or well, in the Bachelor's case, it's a gentleman who's just trying to find love. There's a Mormon gal on The Bachelor, and not just on The Bachelor, like you have that basket case first episode where there's 30 women and you're like, nope, absolutely not, crazy. All the things that everyone loves the first episodes of those kind of series for. This woman is in the like final four, for lack of a better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her name is Lydia, anyway, I can't remember actually, Lydia, but Lit. Why can't I figure out how to pronounce her
I
name?
think that
Anyway,
it is Lydia. I have not heard
Lydia or
it
Litia.
explained anything else.
Okay. Anyway, she is this beautiful half Fijian woman. She's just gorgeous and so sweet and so kind. And they had quite a connection. And Grant, the bachelor, went to visit her hometown. And she's from Salt Lake City, but she ended up taking him to Star Valley, Wyoming, to a family cabin, that sort of thing, where she likes to spend her time. And it was really interesting because he met her mom and dad and brothers, and then they walk around the back, and there's the whole Mormon family, the whole shebang. I mean, it was like I was watching it with my daughter, and she's like, "Ooh, throw him right into it," because prior to this, in the last episode, she had just told him that she belongs to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as Mormons, and he
Mhm.
said he'd never met a Mormon before.
Oh,
And
wow.
kind of interesting. I feel like I mean, we're everywhere, right? But really, we're not. Anyhow, so they had a great time. It really looked amazing. It looked like the family really embraced him. He was really worried about would they judge his tattoos or the fact that he has earrings, all of those things. And
Mhm.
they really just embraced him and they loved him. And the cousins were all just like fawning over him and so excited. He was holding, the little 3 or 4 year old cousin, and just they really, really loved it. And I think it looked like they had a great time. And he had a one-on-one talk with each of her parents and kind of like asking, is it a problem that I'm not a member of your church? And they were both really loving and really accepting. And, I think about myself in that sort of situation.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I would accept anyone my child brings home if they feel they love this person, but really it's The Bachelor, and it's very much a sped up process. And
Sure.
hopefully she really is really falling in love like she said she was. But the mom and dad were just as sweet as can be and told him, our daughter, she's 31 years old. Her goal is to have a family. She's going to be really anxious to start a family right away. Both of them said that. And my daughter was like, okay, are we going to scare this guy off because
Right.
is he ready? But it was fun. It was fun to watch, and it was refreshing to see this, very normal Mormon family that just having fun. And her grandpa was there, and he was just so sweet, and they were crying. And I don't know, it was kind of perfect.
Do you think it's a situation where where he's like, "Hey, is it an issue that I'm not?" And we do the thing where it's like, "No, it's no big deal for now."
For now. I
You
know
know? That
it's
that's the
interesting.
kind of thing that I worry about with stuff like that. And to your point, I think that families love or learn to love whomever their children or siblings love, right?
Yeah,
Hopefully you arrive at that point where you're like, listen, do I think it would be easier? Sure. If you have the same faith background, is that an easier approach? 100%.
for sure.
Because you come from things and you look at things maybe similarly. Is that an easier way to go about it? Yes, it is. But could something like this work out? There's a little bit of phoniness with this to me, always, just because it's the reality TV that we know is not reality, but these are actual consequences that, like, if Lydia decides, hey, you know what, we're going to do this, and he decides, yeah, this sounds like a great deal, like, those are people's lives and actual consequences that I
Yeah.
struggle with when we
Yep.
mesh this with reality. And I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit with not only Ruby Frankie, but also with Taylor, Frankie, Paul, and some of the other things that we'll talk about. But
Yeah.
yeah, that would be the only thing that I kind of wonder or worry about, is it's like, yeah, no, I'm totally fine. You're the first Mormon I've ever met, and you're beautiful and your family's kind, but like you get a little bit more into it and then you go, "Ooh,
Oh, maybe not.
maybe
Yeah.
no, not this."
Yeah. Well, I think the nice thing about this is Grant, the bachelor, is Christian and
Mhm.
he has faith. He has faith in God. And there's at least that common ground that
Yeah.
they both want to raise a family with Christian values and that sort of thing. So I think that helps. But what was interesting is they showed Litia talking to her mom about this and saying, I'm falling in love with him. And the mom is so happy. And the next episode, next week, will be the fantasy suite episode, where
Mhm.
typically the bachelor and the girls, they oftentimes sleep together. And anyhow, she just said to her mom, I don't think I could forgive him if he sleeps with the other girls. And she's like, I'm not going to do it. And that would be really hard for me. And I'm like, oh, good for her. Like, yeah, that's true.
Right.
But what, realistically, is it going to happen? Who knows? And her mom was like, maybe you need to take a step back and be a little more open-minded and realize that even if he does sleep with them, that you could still forgive him for it. I thought that was really interesting. I was like,
Yeah.
here, her mom
Okay.
is kind of like, obviously very stalwart, strong member. I mean, it's for all intents and purposes. And she's like, don't be too hard on him because this is the process and this is where we are. And she's like, I'm proud of you and definitely don't do that yourself if you don't feel you should. But
Mhm.
if he does, maybe be okay with it. Anyway, that was interesting. They ended the night with her now being in the final three. So she
Yes.
is moving on to the
Yes.
fantasy suite. Yep, yep. We got our Mormon girl in there, number
Yeah.
three in line. And it's funny, my daughter, my 19-year-old was watching it and she's like, I just don't understand this, how people can fall in love so fast and how can you be in love with four people? And then by the end, she goes, but you know what? It's actually totally makes sense for a Mormon girl because Mormons tend to have fast engagements, fast,
Sure.
courting anyway. So actually, this is a perfect option for an LDS girl. I thought that was funny.
Were you recording the comments that she made about like, I don't understand how people can fall in love so quick, so that in the future, when if she's dating someone and you're like, hey, maybe not so much, or you have some hesitations, you'd be like, you remember when you were saying maybe we should wait a little longer? And do you remember how you thought maybe that might be rushing it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's all recorded. We got it.
Uh, yeah, the element of having things played out, and this will be a through line through all of it, there just seems, and I'm not questioning her authenticity, I'm just questioning the authenticity in general of where it's like, I know, even if you're being subconsciously aware that people are watching what you are
Mhm.
doing, are you really being who you really are?
Yep.
Or are you being the version that you know that people are watching, and then, it comes out a different way at the end? I don't know.
Yeah. I
But
hear you.
top three. No
Top
sex in
three.
the fantasy suite. That's what the headline that I
Yeah.
saw was like.
But we'll see on Monday when the fantasy suites actually are aired what happens. I mean, not that you can see any of that, obviously,
Sure,
but
sure. Do
it's
they do
implied.
is like the whole episode, you'll have to forgive my bachelor ignorance. Is the whole episode like, if it's an hour, it's 20 minutes of the fantasy suite with one, 20 with
Yep.
another, and 20. Okay. Okay.
Yep, exactly. And the fantasy suite, what it is, they're on a date, they do their thing. There's a key usually, and they decide whether they go back to the fantasy suite together.
Oh.
So, and there have been seasons I've seen where the girl says, I would love to go back to the suite so we can have some alone time because cameras are turned off at that point.
Oh, okay.
What I've heard and read is that a lot of times they're just up like talking a lot because
Yeah.
the first time without cameras present that they get to really get to know each other. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, to the fantasy suite, I suppose. I
here
hope
we go.
I hope they get to have a good conversation and really get to know each other on a deeper level.
I agree.
Fantasy
That would
suite.
be amazing.
I also like the idea of the fantasy suite going on for the other two, and she comes up and it's like, what? That kind of drama makes me happy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Where would you like to go next? We have done The Bachelor now. Where should we land
I
in our
think
next pop culture story?
we need to talk about Ruby Frankie because that is all the rage right now with the new Hulu
Yes.
documentary. And you better believe I watched it the night it was released because this is a fascinating story. I don't know. Do you want to give some background for listeners who don't know about Ruby Frankie? Or
Yeah. Okay. So Ruby Frankie, Eight Passengers, name of her channel, YouTube channel. It originally just started out as just like a way to be able to share her family. And then it started evolving into the way that the family was making money. Um, and then with some of the older kids, specifically her oldest son, starting to have some behavior issues.
Yeah.
She gets connected with Jody Hildebrandt, and then there's a video that comes out on the Eight Passengers channel where it comes to light that Chad, the oldest son, has been sleeping on a beanbag chair and had his room taken away from him, and that for 7 months he was living there. People went after him. A little bit of cancel culture, shut it down, and then they were no longer really able to make the money that they had been able to make previously with that. And then that's when Ruby Franke steps in with a group called Connections. It's essentially
Yeah.
like this is how you can connect with your spouse and connect with your kids. And there are these classes and support groups for men and for women and for the children. And then things go real crazy at
Right.
that point.
Well,
Um,
the documentary is 3 episodes, and it starts with the beginning of the Eight Passengers and how. And it was funny when I was watching it, my son walked in the room and he's like, "Oh, I've seen that video. That was a viral video. It was a video of like a gender reveal, like they were cutting open a cake or whatever." And
mhm.
this is my son who's not even on social media. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Oh, it was a viral video I saw years ago." And I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea." So years ago, before all of the controversy, she really did go viral. And it was interesting because for the documentary, the family has released over 1,000 hours of unseen videos. And watching some of them, I could see myself in some of them in a way where she's videoing herself talking about calendaring and organizing her life. And then the kids in the background are all of a sudden being noisy. And she's like, "Hey, stop what you guys are doing. I'm filming right now."
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, I was talking to my girlfriends the next day about it. I'm like, we've all found ourselves in those kind of instances where we're
Sure.
like doing something, and whether it's a social media post or on the phone or whatever it is. So, like, that's innocent. And that's not obviously, we all go through that as young moms, but hers, there's so much of it. It's like her life obviously became so revolved around the video camera, the phone, or whatever, where it was like everywhere, every minute of their day. And in behind closed doors, she wasn't the smiley, happy, perfect mom. It was definitely more the strict, the trying to get those kids in line. I remember there was one video and they were in the car, and it was kind of when Sherry and Chad, the older two, were kind of starting to have their behavior issues, which
Mhm.
honestly, nothing they did in the documentary that it showed was anything that was abnormal out of being a normal teenager,
Yeah, just being a normal teenage kid that's like, mom wants me to do something just on the principle of the fact that my mom wants me to do this. I do not want to do this. It's that rebelliousness, not like overt rebelliousness. It's just the independence that teenagers find themselves doing. That it's like, I'm not going to do this thing because I don't want to. Can I do
Right.
that? Is that what an independent person can do? And finding out all those different sort of steps. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was one instance where like the older Chad, I think, was just like, "I'm not into this. Like, I don't want to be filmed right now," or whatever. And she's like, "You guys are making $10 per episode. If you want your $10, you need to pay right now." And I was like $10, really? They're making $100,000 a month at this point, and the kids are the star. And especially Chad, from what my girls have told me, he's kind of a heartthrob. And I think a lot of people were watching because of him. And I think he's like, "Yeah, mom, $10. Like, thank you." Like, I think it was just like, I'm kind of over it. So it was
I
interesting.
need to interrupt you real quick though. Tiger Bop magazine would like their
Oh,
phrase
yes.
heartthrob back.
Yes,
Who I haven't
totally.
said
Totally.
heartthrob or even seen the word heartthrob. My teens think it's a
Oh,
heartthrob. I got to give you a hard time about that. That's funny.
I love it.
That Chad
Yeah,
is
I don't
such
think
a
I've said that.
heartthrob.
I haven't said that word in a million years either. And Teen Bop Magazine, I haven't thought of that in a million years either.
Yeah.
But um, anyway, so we could not stop watching. My kids watched it with me. It was super interesting. And watching the evolution of the family and what happened. And they had interviews with neighbors, and neighbors were like, "Yeah, we're watching her walking down the street. She's always wearing her bright clothes and she's filming herself." And they're like, "We're in a private community. None of us wanted our houses on her videos all the time." They just
Right.
kind of talking about how she wasn't super kind, wasn't outgoing, never had neighbors over, was never very neighborly. It was definitely more, her life was all about this YouTube channel. And they said, Kevin was always great and super nice, the husband, but she was just a little bit off. And that was pretty evident with, what they were saying. And Yeah, it was pretty awful. The video where Chad says, "Oh yeah, I've been sleeping on a beanbag chair for the last 7 months." I mean,
Mhm.
literally, they took his room away. I'm like, that's really humiliating for a 16, 17-year-old. Like,
Sure.
I mean, you could take the door off of the bedroom, people do that, but like to sleep on a beanbag chair. And definitely there was a cancel culture element there. People were like, "Oh, we're like, you don't do that." And so while it didn't seem like horrible abuse as far as like physically at the time, she definitely was. I mean, it was pretty bad. And
Uh,
yeah.
real quick on that, the neighborhood though that she lived in, did you feel
Mhm.
like that neighborhood was a little bit of like there was a little bit of a stank on the neighborhood for me as I was watching? I'm like, that is a bunch of people that is in a bunch of people's business
Totally.
about that neighborhood. So like, I mean, let us not downplay Ruby Frankie being, as horrible as everything that she is.
Yeah.
And that neighborhood seems like one of those neighborhoods where it's like, well, yeah, I hear the little Stedman boy has been viewing pornography. I can't believe, like it
Right.
is a busybody neighborhood.
Totally. I completely agree with you. Definitely that was happening there. Um, but anyway, the other reason why this case has always been really interesting to me is because Jody Hildebrand. So we move on to the connections, and I think Ruby Frankie and her husband, they stopped cohabitating in like 2022. Like she moved
Hmm.
down to St. George essentially to live with Jody Hildebrand. Jody was in my in-laws ward and lived right around the corner from them. So
Oh,
when
wow.
this all came out and the news was out, I'm like, that's my name. That's our neighborhood. That's where my in-laws live. And it's a very interesting neighborhood in Ivins, Utah. It's very small and spread out. It's very unique. It's called Kayenta.
Hmm.
And when I watched the video of the boy going to the home of the old man, and the old man is walking out, my husband's like, dang, like that could literally be my dad, Anyhow, it was awful. I hadn't seen any pictures or anything of
Yes.
like the boy and
Hmm.
the duct tape and the everything that was on him. And he was so thin, so emaciated. And in that call that this gentleman makes to 911, he ends up crying as he's describing this boy. And the boy was blurred out, like you couldn't see a lot, but they did show pictures of the wrappings, the duct tape and saran wrap that had been around his ankles and arms. The police had found more of it when they went and searched Jody Hildebrand's house. And that was pretty horrifying. I mean, it's awful to think this woman who just a few years earlier was this, oh, 2 million followers, people loving her little Mormon life and watching their, little family that it loves God so much. And she's so, religious and whatever to now be where we're at. It was really, really shocking and really sad.
One of the things that I feel like Kevin within the documentary makes the point to say is there was a point where it clicked because he
Yeah.
mentions about how he initially was like, nah, I don't really want, but like once it became the thing that they were doing and then
Mhm.
had to keep up those appearances. I forget the exact phrase that he says, but something I think it's even where the title of the thing comes from is that they essentially let the devil into their home to be able to do this video. And that's the thing that's so scary to me about about the folks with the secret lives of Mormon wives, about really literally anyone, is that you lose connection with whom you really are and start to play the part of whom you think people, or what I guess you think people want you to be, or
Right.
what you think you are being portrayed as, so you have to continue to be that. And that to me is where it feels so dangerous and so scary. And once you
Yeah.
can just commit to doing that, who knows what you'll end up doing, as we see
Yeah.
in the case of this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she went way off the rails, way off the deep end. And
Hmm.
you're exactly right. You do kind of make a deal with the devil. And I have to say the other interesting part to me is really Kevin's role in all of this. I mean, he's like, I didn't know this was going on. And I just have to ask, like, how does a father not have any idea? Even if you're divorced or separated or whatever it may be, how do you lose such sight and just communication with your kids that you didn't know any of that was going on? That was really sad.
Right.
And I don't know how even remorseful he is. I don't know. Like I don't know. It was just a weird situation to see him and to see the way he was talking about it. And the other weird thing is we don't really know what's happened to the two middle children. We've
Right.
got the two older kids that were disowned essentially, and then the two youngest kids that were horrifically abused and trapped. And then these two middle kids, and they briefly showed them that they had been at a neighbor's house or a friend's house up in probably Springville or something when
Mhm.
this all went down in St. George. So I don't know what happened to them and why they weren't with their dad. Um, and truthfully, I don't know where they are now. So just a lot. It's a lot, and it's really, really sad and really kind of awful when you see, yeah, that the devil takes over and you find yourself into this spiral. I mean, she was saying that her kids were um, demonically possessed, and that's why she was having to restrain them and just wild stuff. Really crazy. But you know what's interesting? My daughter said, so Sherry Frankie, the older daughter, she said she'll never speak to her mother again. She has
Mhm.
no desire to have any relationship. She said, I've seen the crocodile tears more times than I can count, and this is unforgivable. However, she said, like, I understand forgiveness and but I don't need to forgive my mother for what she did. But my daughter said, you know, it's interesting. How has Sherry been able to stay active in the LDS church? And I said, well, do we know if she is or not? I don't know for sure. And my daughter follows her on social media. She's like, oh yeah. And she said the only thing she follows on Instagram is like President Nelson and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and all of these like 8 LDS accounts. So by all, you know, for all intents and purposes, it seems like she's remained active in the church. And I asked my daughter, like, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, if you have a mother that's raising you in the gospel and raising you in such a religious home, and then it spirals out of control like this, like it would be really hard to continue living that life. And I said, well, I think she's been able to separate enough that her mom was actually crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And how much of it is like actual mental illness from Ruby Frankie, and how much of it is the documentary goes into great length about the brainwashing,
right.
and a case could be made that it literally was a very like programmatic brainwashing of first we isolate and then we are able
Yep.
to do these things and then we reinforce this and then become the only one. Uh, Trigger warning for anyone who might be listening to this at this point about the kids. The journal entries that were shared, I think, give a glimpse that we did not have before. One that said, sleep outside, shaved her head, doused her with water over his nose and mouth, head in the toilet, needs to be painful. And then another one, I told the boy he emulates a snake. If he wants to emulate the Savior, the body must engage in good work, and the good works need to be painful. I have the power of God, and he must obey. And it seems, you know how they always talk about how the adversary will have like the littlest bit of truth in something, because a blatant lie, we'd go, yeah, there's not any part of that that's true, and we can kind of just be like, no, whatever. But it's like the
Yeah.
teeniest amount of things, and then the rest wrapped around it can be just so disgusting and so terrible and so awful. And that's what it seems like this whole situation is. And I contend that it is the being like tricked into, we have to do this because this is what people are seeing of us, the performative nature of everything within social media or YouTube or whatever we want to say, the performative nature of this, that if you're able to disembody yourself from, oh, that's not me, but then that thing that you're doing becomes you, that's the
Yeah.
freaky thing.
Right. Right. Really freaky.
And why Sherry Frankie is saying, hey, you know what? We need to not allow this anymore, or is advocating against family vlogging, or for more rules to be put into place, or compensation, or any of these things. I also thought it was interesting, and I didn't know this. This came out, and it's about 3 hours long. It's 3 50-minute kind of segments for this Hulu documentary. Is I didn't know that one of the things that um, has come from it is that the money set aside from the selling of Jody Hildebrandt's home is going to go for the medical care of the kids, the
Yeah.
two younger kids. I thought
Awesome.
that was, if there is a glimmer of something great in
Right.
it, I mean, maybe it won't be enough because it's a whole lifetime of
Of
uh, of
therapy
of
and
therapy and those things, but at least some money was awarded to those kids
yeah.
for having
Yep.
gone through that.
One other thing, and maybe this is my naivety, I didn't even consider that the two of them were romantically involved, that Jody and Ruby were, and the kids implied, they're like, we don't know, but like we're pretty sure that they were in a same-sex situation. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. I just thought, well, they're like weird and crazy together, and they're, anyway, but
yeah. Yeah, and no, neither of them have said anything about that,
no,
but
no.
certainly everyone kind of around it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to this is sort of some other tangential kind of things. I don't know that this person even is, so I guess maybe this is a seeking for a little bit more information. But Leslie Jones, who people will remember was on Saturday Night Live, she's recently doing a podcast and she's talking about one of the directors on Saturday Night Live being just the worst kind of person. From things like she had cut herself during a sketch or hurt herself and she was going to leave, and this director was like, no, no, you're not, I am the director and I will tell you when you this, that, and the other, uh to also being this I, I mean racist, I guess.
Yeah.
She in the interview says that this guy is Mormon, but there's not anything out there that says for sure that he is or for sure that he isn't. And this guy is Dave McCary, Emma Stone's husband. They
Mhm.
say that there's something out there about him being Seventh Day Adventist, but Seventh Day Adventist, as you and I both know very clearly, is not Mormon. We don't even worship on the same day, for crying out loud.
Right.
Notoriously both white, I guess, white dominant Seventh
Yeah.
Day Adventist and Mormon folks, but it's a weird story that hit.
It is weird. And it's funny when that she made this assumption and said he's Mormon, and then it just goes all over. Oh, and she never says that it's McCary, but based on her saying he had a large Adam's apple, she was basically describing who this director was on SNL. And so it came back to be that it's probably him, Emma Stone's husband. But I'm telling you, I have searched the internet high and low. I've looked on all the Reddit pages. I do not think he has any affiliation with the LDS Church.
Hmm.
I'm gonna maybe I'll be proven wrong, but really I don't think he is. And probably my thought is that maybe a staunch 7-day Adventist is, I don't know, maybe pretty strict in their beliefs, and maybe that's why. Maybe she thought, well, he must be Mormon because he's
Yeah.
strict. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
or people get those things confused. I mean, for us, we're like, how can you even? It's like when people
Right.
confuse us with Jehovah's Witnesses, we're like, that's not even remotely the same thing. I mean, kind of, but not really.
Yeah.
There are similar principles. We go, I can't believe it, and everyone else is like, nah, I can see it. I can
Yeah,
see the
yeah,
comparison. Why not?
yeah, yep. So, yep, I don't, it was a weird story though. Super interesting.
But not as weird as the last story we'll talk about. I This was in the Daily Mail, or I guess wait, this won't be the last story
Yeah,
because we do
we
have.
have to talk about Taylor Frankie Paul. Like we just have to at some point.
Let's get to this really weird story and then we'll
Okay.
wrap it out with Taylor Frankie Paul. This
Okay.
story was in the Daily Mail. If people don't know, it's sort of it's not the Inquirer, right? Because it's not fake news. In fact, in some ways, and in some cases, they actually do more investigation for the Daily Mail, or they'll share more details because it's a UK online print. Um, they'll do more research and put more out there that we don't get here in the United States, just because it's different journalistic practices, it's different things like that. But I couldn't figure out for the life of me really
Fine.
why this would ever even be a story.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a
Yeah.
little bit what this is about.
So this 40-year-old LDS woman named Mia, she basically has said she's never had a relationship until in her 40s. And she's talking about how she dated in her congregation, she dated in her 20s, but nothing progressed to a second date. And until she hit 40 and she started posting on TikTok back in 2021. She said the reason she started posting on TikTok was to end the stigma of being a single adult, I guess. And it's funny because in the normal world, being a 38, 39-year-old single woman isn't like that big of a deal. I don't know. But anyhow, so she started posting. And then last August, another 40-year-old named Max spotted her TikTok video and decided to send her a message. And he said, I'm going to shoot my shot with her.
Mhm.
And they've now been dating happily for the last 6 months. And they're seem to be doing really well. But again, I don't know why this is a story.
Yeah.
Why does anyone care? I don't know.
I mean,
Um,
it's great that they found each other.
yeah,
Maybe it's a little unique that she was at 41 or 42 coming out on TikTok and saying, "Hey, I've never really dated anyone and I want to change that." I mean, I guess that's a little bit of an interest of a story, right? Like that they met on TikTok, but not really.
no, no. It's
Thousands of
interesting.
people meet on social media every day.
Right, right. That's very much how this generation is meeting a lot of their romantic relationships. It's interesting. I have a niece who's 31, 32, and I was talking to my sister-in-law recently about if she's dating anyone, and she's never had a date beyond like the first, maybe the second date. And so it's kind of like similar. She's getting older and feels she has a career. And I guess in the Mormon sphere, like that is unique, but in the real world, it's not that unique. So,
Yeah, one of the things towards the end, I want to make sure I read this because I thought this was interesting. Mia said that she gets mixed reactions when she tells people that this is her first relationship and that she has no regrets in life, adding that it's all part of the journey. It's definitely all part of the experience and the journey. I wish for my younger self to have had the ability to separate my worth from my relationship status. There is healing in finding this relationship for me. And then Max said, "What I love about me is her heart. She is extremely kind and giving. She cares so much for others, not just those close to her, strangers." And so I guess if we have to if we have to hallmark this lesson or lifetime movie this story, like at the end, like I hope that people realize that uh, from a gospel perspective, what that like so let me say this a different way actually. One of the things that I found to be most frustrating after I was married and then divorced and then dating again was people that were in their 30s whom their life had not continued because they had not been married. and
yeah,
and that I think is a truly sad thing, and I think that a misunderstanding of how the gospel works would keep people in that waiting place where it's like, once I have this, then all this. Once I can do this, then I can do this. And so, if we can really shoehorn a moral from this story, live a life that you can be proud of and know that those things may come or that they may not come, but you are a worthwhile individual, whether you are coupled or partnered with someone or not, or you were and then you're not anymore and then you will be again, or you never were and now you are, or whatever the thing may be. That is not where your worth in God's eyes comes from. And you can
absolutely.
lead an exceptional life if you choose to do it, no matter what your coupled status is.
Yep, yep. Great takeaway.
So now let's talk about Taylor Frankie Paul.
Well, Taylor Frankie Paul had been absent from social media for nearly 2 weeks, and people were kind of wondering what was going on. Where is she? Is she okay? And she did come back on February 19th after being
Oh,
gone. So she's
oh.
still there, still alive. They say she came back refreshed from wherever she was. I don't know 100% where she was, whether she was in some therapy or if she had just taken a break from life and went
Mhm.
to a deserted island. I don't really know, but basically saying, I had a life-changing experience. I removed myself from everything for 11 days and purely focused on my mental health. And I can imagine in that sphere, in that social media that she is involved in, you do need to remove yourself from that quite often in order to stay mentally healthy. So she had all of her other Mom Talk co-stars, Mormon co-stars, congratulating her on her journey and telling her they loved her and they were so happy that she's taking this time out for herself. So hopefully whatever she needed to do, she was able to do and is able to come back and ready to focus more on her kids and the rest of her life. But I have to tell you, she won an award just in the last 2 days. Do you know about this award she
No,
won?
tell me.
So she was on the Live Moss Live award show. Well,
Okay.
I don't know if it's televised. This is a Taco Bell award show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Live Moss, live more.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it was a whole Taco Bell. I didn't know these existed, but maybe yearly they do awards from Taco Bell. And it was for, oh gosh, like the most unique menu hack. Well, the award goes to Taylor Frankie Paul for taking her drink and adding cream to it and making it a dirty Baja Blast on, and I think it was on the show or maybe on TikTok. I don't know where it was posted, but they made a big deal about how now they've added all these drinks to their menu, and there is the Taylor Frankie Paul Dirty Baja Blast that will be on the menu now.
Hmm.
So she has made it in life.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm a big Taco Bell fan. If Taco Bell's giving me a award, I'm like, yeah, I've made it. We're here. We've done this. So anyway, I thought that was so funny. I saw that on her Instagram.
You can find it. It's you can find the entire award ceremony on YouTube. We'll have a link for it in the show notes so that people can see that. So here's the thing about this. Does it seem like with this Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, like in some aspect that you're sort of watching someone, you're contributing to the like destruction of
Yeah.
someone's life?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I watch it and particularly Taylor Frankie Paul, you see a lot of just different things, right? The assault that happened and the kids and the on and again, off again with the Dakota and all of this, right? And you know that part of it is life.
Mhm.
And you know that part of it is something to talk about. And then she has everything with her friends, and that's some drama, and knows how to be able to share it in a way that people will get invested. And if people aren't invested, there's a need, whether it's an addiction like a dopamine hit of, I need people's responses to these things. But we just sort of feed it. And then I look and take a step back and go, all right, I am not at that level, but am I setting boundaries around when I use my phone? And am
Mhm.
I putting things out on social media because I want the things? Am I just a step away from something like this happening? And then I would lead a life that's completely, I don't have the right words necessarily to describe exactly what I'm saying, but it feels so like dangerous and fragile the way that we interact with one another in our not real lives.
Yeah. I think we're walking a line for sure. I think there is definitely some danger in it for sure. And I think, like you said, she's the perfect example of that. Like we, and are these people doing and creating and making drama that wouldn't normally be there in their normal life just for the views? I would venture to say yes. I mean, there can't possibly be that many fights and that many arguments in real life if you weren't trying to make it, and get the views. And so
Mhm.
I think it's a real danger we are dealing with in this day and age. And I think it is something we have to be really careful about. We have to check ourselves a little bit and make sure that we are being careful about that, what we're viewing and what we're using as entertainment. And that actually gives me a lot to think about. Like, am I contributing because I enjoy watching this show? I don't know. It's
Yeah.
interesting to think about, though.
Yeah. It is one of the things that for me scares me the most. I think there's some part of being that air quotes influencer. Cultural Hall
Mhm.
is a way, right? But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not
Yeah.
I'm not making $100,000 a month and locking my kids up in the basement with the money that's made here. Like,
Good.
but I mean, it's fun. It's a thing that I do. It's passion, but I've never really leaned into it. And if I'm being honest, I don't know that I'm really able to be that skilled, or whatever. I would hope to think that that would be, but I really am just more afraid of if it were successful. I don't know that I have the strength to put in the boundaries that would not make me just be an absolute crazy person. And I hate people that are always on their phone, that
Yeah.
everything is for the next video and say that again. And could you say
Yeah.
it this way? Like it just feels so fake to me that I just kind of push it off and go, I don't even want to lean towards it
Totally.
for
Totally.
fear of ever being like that.
Several of my friends for years, they're like, you need to become a travel influencer. You could get free trips because I do travel a lot and I love posting about it. And mostly I do that for my own scrapbooking, so to speak. It's my only journal, scrapbook, whatever. So I don't care if anyone looks at it, but it's the way that I preserve the memories and I can go look back on the trips and whatever. And every once in a while, I used to think, oh, maybe I could get some free things when I could get a free hotel stay. I could get this or that. But at the end of the day, I've said it to several times, like, I don't want to answer to anyone else.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever feel like I'm not enjoying my life because I have to answer to someone, or because I'm being paid for something, I need to portray it a certain way. I want to be able to post a picture that maybe isn't the most flattering, but it was a super fun experience just because it was that, and so I would never want that. And I agree with you. I hate watching the contrived videos. And I have a couple of friends who are, one in particular that is striving to be an influencer right now, and it's kind of painful and cringy to watch. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And people recognize what she's doing, and it's been really interesting.
There's a part of me that wishes I could lean into being an influencer, like the anti-influencer, and become an
Right,
influencer.
right.
Like just make the worst things ever and be some sort of influencer, right? And like just have it be just a train wreck of a thing. If that
Yeah,
could be a thing, maybe I would want to do it that way. I'm not sure.
that would be fun. That would be fun. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you keeping up on all of the the mainstream pop culture stories in and around the church. It sounds like we're gonna have to chat again now that she's in the top three. I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
need you to feverishly follow up on that and give me
I
all
will.
the juicy tidbits as far as that. Maybe we'll have you be a part of a news episode, or maybe I'll just chat with you about that and plug that in
Yeah.
with another news episode in the future.
Yep.
Uh, Egg prices still affecting the crumble cookies? Is everything all right in Crumble Land?
Everything's fine. Egg prices are killing us. Yeah, it's rough,
Yeah,
and I don't foresee it getting better anytime soon. And we'll probably have a price increase soon. And I hate doing a price increase
sure.
because I would rather not. But eggs used to be 7 cents a piece. Now they're 80 cents a piece for us.
Yeah.
So you got to do something, especially when one batch requires 48 eggs, and so that's
Jeez.
a lot of eggs.
That's
But
all right. They're going to put more money back in our pockets. That's the plan.
mm,
2025, more money in our pockets. I'm not seeing it, and it's
not
projected
yet.
to be 2,000 less than it was last year, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone, we're fine. It'll be great. It's fine. Why did he have to get political?
I know why, why? But I actually have another thing we need to talk about next time we meet.
Okay.
Have you ever talked about Benson Boone, the LDS singer?
Well, he's not really LDS anymore. Raised LDS.
No, but we talk about a lot of people who are not really LDS anymore. I just love him. And if we ever have a chance, we should talk about him.
Tell you what, you plan on it for the next time. I'm going to
Okay.
need you to introduce. I'm a beautiful thing, Spence and Boone. That's
That's
the
where
thing for
you,
me.
yeah.
And also I have remind me of this because I am going to ask you to in-depth talk about Benson Boone in the future.
Okay.
Uh I am afraid for his future, and I need you to
Yeah.
ask me about that. I
Okay.
have
All
a
right.
I have a very strong fear for Benson Boone, and so we can get into that. All right, well, good. I'm glad that's a great tease for the next time you're on.
Yeah.
We talk Bachelor and Benson Boone. It's a lot of
Yep.
bees.
It's a
Hope
lot.
that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
And if you weren't able to tune in this week, you'll be able to next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
On the back row
of the
of
Cultural Hall.
Cultural.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row.